المظلومين ولعنة الدائم على أعدائهم وغاصبي حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم ومناقبهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد أرسلنا رسولنا بالبينات وأنزلنا معهم الكتاب والميزان ليقوم الناس بالقسط وأنزلنا حديد فيه بأس شديد ومنافع للناس وليعلم الله من ينصره ورسوله بالغيب إن الله قوي عزيز. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We extend our condolences to the Imam of our time on the days of the martyrdom of Rasulullah and Imam Hasan al-Mushtaba and Imam Rada. The topic that we will have for 3 nights, we will be looking at the phenomena of justice, which is actually the purpose being mentioned in this verse which I recited in Surah Hadid, which goes that لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رَسُولَنَا, certainly we have sent our apostles. The Anbiya have been sent for this purpose, and that is with manifest proofs. وَأَنزَلْنَا لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رَسُولَنَا, certainly we have said لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رَسُولَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ, we know with proofs. Bayanat, also some of the Mufassirin, they have said Bayanat as miracles. Every prophet is giving a miracle. So we have sent the prophets with miracles to support the prophet. Obviously the mu'jizat, miracles are there to support the prophet. Every prophet brought a miracle. In order to prove their prophecy, people asked them, what is the proof that you are from God? Then prophet performed a miracle. So the ayah of the Quran says that, laqad, certainly we have sent the prophet bil bayyanat, and also wa anzalna ma'humul kitab, and also along with them we send the books. Suhuf Ibrahim, or Suhuf Musa, or Zaburo, Injilo, Tauratu, all of these books were sent along with the prophets, right? Wal mizan, and also a mizan. Mizan is a balance, as we all know. So Allah is supporting the Prophet or sending the Prophet with all of these things, with bayanat, with books, with mizan, and in order for what? لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, in order that the people, in order that mankind, as the exact translation it would be that, so that the mankind may maintain justice, so that the people may establish justice. So establishing justice is the duty and responsibility of ours, because the prophets or Allah even cannot impose something, cannot force something. That will be dictatorship. If a prophet comes and he wants to do something, impose and force something, the people have to have that substance, understanding by which they would like to establish justice. And when we look at, for example, in the stories of the Prophet, you find that every prophet who established a state or who had a state, for example, Hazrat Dawood, Hazrat Suleiman, particularly in these 2 examples, the people were tired of the tyranny that was going on. The people of Moses were tired of the tyranny, and then they supported the Prophet. They wanted the justice to be there. Right? So the responsibility lies on our shoulder for the sake of establishment of justice to support the Prophet. Same like in the case of the 12th Imam. The 12th Imam is there. All the Imams were there. They will never force themselves or impose justice, but it is the people who have to support them so that they can do that. Right? So it's very important to have that understanding that when the people will reach to a limit or were cornered or were pushed to the wall and eventually have no hope, then they will call for that justice against the injustices that are taking place. And justice is a universal value. It is somebody who is accepted. It's a phenomena, it's a reality which is accepted by all humanity. It's a universal thing. Two people will be against perhaps in terms of their religion, but when it comes to justice, they'll say yes. It's something that is internal, something that is in our nafs. The understanding of justice in our nafs. It is similar to the consciousness of good, to the consciousness of good, to the consciousness of God, even, if you want to say. That's why the Quran, as it says, Alif Lam Mim Zalikal Kitab La Raiba Fi Hudan Lil Muttaqin. The Quran is the book for not Muslimin, not Mu'mineen, book for Muttaqin. So this means that even a non-Muslim can be a Muttaqi person, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. If the Quran is the book for Muttaqin, Alif Lam Mim Zalikal Kitab Hudan Lil Muttaqin. Now, yes, the definition of who muttaqin are, later the Quran is explaining, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِمَّا هُمْ رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Yes, people who believe in the ghaib. And as we all know, there are darajat and there are levels of taqwa. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ. As the verse says, oh, people who have taqwa, have iman as well. So that means that there could be a muttaqi person who may not even have iman. There could be a person who have taqwa and iman, and then wakunu ma sadiqeen. At the same time, you have to be with the truthful ones. The Ahl Bayt are the sadiqeen. So you have to have iman, you have to have taqwa, you have to be with the truthful. Or for example, in Surah Hujarat, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, or people who have brought iman, do not do backbiting, for example. So that means a mu'min can do something which is haram, for example. It is addressing to the mu'mineen in Surah Hujarat. All of the verses, most of the verses, which is a very surah of virtue, of moral, of etiquette, teaches us etiquettes, akhlaq, is referring to mu'mineen, Surah Hujarat. And it's referring, do not, call names to the Prophet, do not make fun of others, all referring to mu'mineen. So mu'mineen can do all of these things. So here the same way, they are muttaqeen, but there are different levels of muttaqeen. Allama Tabatabai also have a similar opinion in regards to this verse of Ya ayyuhalladhina alif lam mim zalikal kitab hudan lil muttaqeen. So something of understanding of natural good, of humanity, that is taqwa. So the same way justice is like that. The supporting for justice, it could be from any person, regardless of a Muslim or a non-Muslim. And that's what we and those who do not, that means that there's something wrong. Right? Those who do not support and those who do not speak against injustice, then there's something wrong in the material. Zahiri, that person may be a mu'min or, Muslim or whatever, but in terms of internally, is not speaking against the injustice that is taking place. What type of insan this person is? Is not praying, is not supporting, is not asking Allah to shower His blessing on the orphans, on the widows, on women and children who are going through suffering. The humanity is dead here. But to zahir, outwardly speaking, a person may be whatever. Right. So now going back onto the point that the prophets have been sent in order that the people establish, the prophet will facilitate, the prophet will teach, the prophets will ignite the fitra and the nature of man, will provide man to inform them what is good, do amar bil maruf and nahi anil munkar, and it is our duty to establish, because we will be the one who will suffer. If we don't vouch for justice, if we don't go establish justice with the help of the prophets, we will be the one who will be suffering. For example, the imams were left alone. Who suffered? We suffered. Right? Now the imam is in the major occultation. He's not here. Who is suffering? We are suffering. Right? So when we do not support justice, when we do not work towards justice, we will suffer. So it's very important that for our baqa, for our for our humanity, for that insaniyat to be alive in us, we have to have the sense of justice and injustice. It's very important, right? Yes, in terms of methodology, how to support, what not to support, that's a different question, right? But in terms of having that understanding that this is injustice and this is justice, it's basically good and evil. It's good and evil. That one clearly understand, outwardly speaking, this is good and this is evil, the same way this is justice and it is unjust. And it is in the fitrat of man. Now I will point out to this aspect of it in the nature of man. See, what is justice? What do we mean by justice? Justice means that everything being in its proper place. For example, if you look at nature, when you look at nature, you feel at peace. You enjoy looking at nature. You want to be in the nature because everything in its proper place. The mountains, the clouds, the trees, the river, everything is so Allah, that's justice of Allah. Allah have made everything just. It is man who goes and burn the trees or carve things in the mountain, so on and so forth, which kind of makes it a bit awkward, just for what? For the nafs. Man is destroying the nature, which is justice of Allah, for the sake of the nafs. Just want to have a personal pleasure is, he's putting a stick in the, in the cycle, as they say, in the wheel, right? To stop it, to stop the justice of Allah, right? So therefore, justice is something that everything in its proper place. And that's what in the terms of the definition is the same thing, that everything should be in its proper. That's why if you look at, Allah is sending the Prophet and with the book. What does this book doing? The book is trying to guide us to establish justice. Quran is the book of guidance, hudal lil muttaqeen. Quran is the book by which through justice is established. It is through Quran that justice is established. There were injustices taking place at the time of the Prophet. Prophet came with the book, with the mizan, with the bayanat. What is this book doing? What is this book vouching for? What is this book promoting? What is this Sharia is asking us to perform and do? It is asking us to perform justice. Everything that we do, it's going in the direction of justice. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. We do zulm on our nafs, but through the light of the Quran, through the rahmah of the Quran, we establish justice. Inna nafsa ammaratu bisu, as the nafs is something that commands us to do evil, illa ma rahima rabbi, except that nafs which have rahmat of Allah upon that nafs. What is the rahmat of Allah? The rahmat of Allah is the book of Allah. The nafs will command to do evil. If I have the rahmat of Allah on me, if I listen to the rahmat and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the book, right, which clearly says the Quran is a book of, rahmah, brought by rahmatul lil alameen. It was brought by the Prophet, right? So if I do that, then I will be establishing justice. Because my nafs is commanding me to do evil. And if it commands me to do evil, it's gonna, do zulm. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu. Where will be the zalimeen? The way to come out from this zulm that I'm doing is the Quran. So if I live my life the way Quran is asking me to live, that's the way the justice will be established in my life, in my house, in my community, and beyond. Right. So who have brought this book is Rasul. Laqad arsalna, Rasulana bayanat wal mizan and kitab, and Rasul have brought this book, and which is rahmah, by rahmatul lil alameen. So if we bring that Sharia, if we bring that Quran, and having said that, just in the margin, in kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni yuhibbukumullah. If you love Allah, then follow the Prophet. If you follow the Prophet, Allah will love you as well. And Allah, inna Allah yuhibbul, as the Quran says, muqsitin. Those who establish justice, Allah love them. Inna Allah yuhibbut tawwabin. Inna Allah yuhibbul, muttaqin. right? In Allah yuhibbu, Allah love those who establish justice, as well as the Quran says. In kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni, follow the Rasul. And there are about 50 verses in the Quran which talks about justice and the importance of justice. As in another verse of the Quran, it says that, Allah commands us, to establish justice in a very salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Inna Allah, ya Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, ya. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. Allah commands for adl and ihsan. Because see, when we talk about justice, it becomes a bit heavy. Now let's open up a bit. Because every time when justice is trying to be there, one may, it's a bit sakht, it's a bit difficult. Justice is not easily taken, right? So that's why Allah is saying, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adl, and also ihsan as well. So when, yes, you are asked to establish justice, but also ihsan at the same time. That you do it in the most beautiful way. And that we see from the prophets, from the Masumin alayhi salam, the way they vouch and the way they stood for justice in the most beautiful way. The whole qiyam of Imam Hussain alayhi salam was for justice in the most beautiful way. Everybody loved it. Everybody wanted to support him because the way he wanted to establish justice is so loving. Imam Hasan, the peace treaty is for that very purpose. Everybody loves it. And whenever somebody establishes justice, that unveils the oppressor. That unveils the one who is doing injustice. In the history and even today as well. When anybody wants to establish and vouch for justice and speak about justice, those who are oppressing, their niqab, their veil will be unveiled in front of their faces. That whether they have humanity or not, whether they have that insaniyat or not, whether they are really vouching for justice or not, whether they have that human, sense in them or not. While looking at the zulm that has taken place against Imam Hussain in history, nobody will say that, na'uzubillah, we should not say or do anything about it. It's very clear. The same way, if that be today or if that be in the past. So, when a person establishes or vouch for or is establishing justice and establishes justice, it will unveil the people who are oppressing. And the way they should establish is wal adli wal ihsan. Also ihsan is in the most beautiful way, in the most how should I say what do you call Salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Putting everything, as it says that the justice should be established in Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. In the most beautiful way, spiritual beauty is actually pointing out to ihsan. Outward beauty is pointing out to that adl. So if adl is difficult, is heavy, and we don't understand its outward nature, we may say that, oh, this is very heavy, right? And that's usually the case. But if it comes with ihsan, which is trying to understand what this adl is all about, then that becomes beautiful, right? That's why the Quran says that qisas, basically the blood money or the blood verdict that's been taken out against a person, tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye, that type of thing, right? That is justice. It looks very heavy, it's very jalali, it's very sour. But if it is explained, the Quran says, but there is rahmat in qisas. The outwardly, it may look very dry, heavy, jalali, but in its inward nature, there is something which is mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ayah of the Quran says, وَرَحْمَةٌ فِي قِسَاسٍ. There is mercy in qisas. If it is established, and the point is that of explaining it and making people understand that. When people understand, then they will naturally accept and they will go for it, even if that they have to give their life for the sake of justice. And that's what we see in Karbala, right? That they gave their life in order for, adl, in order for justice. Now, if we go further, when we look at some of the verses of the Quran that it talks about justice, is actually Rasulullah who been given وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Now here is Rasul. Now he's been sent with the book Mizan and Bayyanat in order that people establish justice. Now Rasul's duty is وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ and teach them the book. So the purification of mankind, Rasul when he performs, then when he is purified, then this person, this individual will be looking forward or will vouch or will stand up for justice. So that element of purification is needed. If a person is not purified, then the person will follow the nafs. That's what happened in Karbala as well. Those people who were purified, they went with Imam Hussain alayhi salam to establish justice, to give their life. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ and وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابِ. Rasul is there to also teach people about the book. So for us, if we want to pay allegiance to Rasul and to the book as is the eve of the Shahadat of Rasulullah, and we want to be in the party of Rasul, what is required, and at the same time connecting this to the Imam of our time, for the universal justice to be established for all of mankind, one of the things that is required is وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. That is, our purification is something that is needed. If we are not purified, if we don't perform purification, tazkiyah of our nafs, and also educate ourselves of what justice is and what zulm is, then we will be lost. If we don't, then we will be not going in the direction of establishing justice, which is the main purpose of the Quran and of the Prophet, that the people establish justice. Because Allah have created everything just. Because Allah is Adl. One of the names of Allah is Adl. And everything that He has created is just. And He wants us to be going in that direction, towards Adl, towards justice. Right? If Inna Lillahi wa Inna Ilayhi Raji'un, right? We come from Allah and we return to Allah. One of the names of Allah is Adl. So when we are performing and vouching and working towards justice, that's the true journey of ours towards Allah. Because Allah is also Adl. Allah is Adl. So if we work towards that, that means our journey going back, which is Sirat-e-Mustaqim, is correct. What is Sirat-e-Mustaqim? Right? As we recite in Surah Hamd, guide us on the Sirat-e-Mustaqim, or keep us on the Sirat-e-Mustaqim. And this Sirat-e-Mustaqim is something that is going towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it is. And the example of this, or the symbolism of the Sirat-e-Mustaqim, is no one but Amirul Mu'mineen himself. Where Amirul Mu'mineen says, I am Sirat-e-Mustaqim. I am Sirat-e-Mustaqim. Hazrat Amir is Sirat-e-Mustaqim. That's why all his life, Hazrat Amir wanted to establish social justice. All his life. His silence was for adalat, when he was quiet in the beginning. And his picking up the sword and fighting in Siffin and Jamal and Nahrawan was for that. Is to establish justice. When Malik and Amirul Mu'minin were speaking to each other, and he says that to Malik, Amirul Mu'minin says, why is it that all of these people, they join Muawiyah so much? What's the reason behind that? He gathers everybody. And we have seen that how he has, even at the time of Imam Hasan, as we are in his days as well, one of the cousin of Imam Hasan himself was paid on the night, and he joined the army of Muawiyah. Abdullah ibn Abbas, who was the cousin, but at the same time betrayed Imam Hasan because he was bought by Muawiyah, right? So Hazrat Amir was mentioning to Muawiyah that why is it? Then Muawiyah says that because Muawiyah, attracts people by the dunya and give the dunya to the people and they come. But you talk about justice all the time. Even to your closest one, as we know that, Aqil comes to Hazrat Ali and asks for something. He has a different lamp for doing the accounts of the ummah, and he has a different lamp for his own. To that extent, he pays attention to what justice is, right? And here Hazrat Amir, he says to Hazrat Amir this, not that he is telling in any way that, oh, you should do the same. No, he's saying this is the reason. He's analyzing it. Because of that, you don't have any support. So when we are talking about adalat and justice, it requires a very tough soul. It requires a pure soul. Somebody who is very pure, one who have purified oneself to the highest level. And that's what this zuhur requires. That purity. You have to have that. We're talking about challenge. We're talking about balance. Justice is balance, right? Like, for example, if a person is very shuja, extraordinary, but will not call that person a shuja, this person will become a tyrant. If he has a lot of power, he's strong, and he does not have at the same time mercy, does not have at the same time knowledge, this person will be a tyrant. He's strong. If you call shuja'at as being strong, but shuja'at, the true shuja'at is not being strong, it's the question of balance. If having that mercy. Now, if a person just have mercy only and does not have shuja'at and courage, then this person will be timid. So when you have the balance of that mercy and at the same time strength, that person is considered as a true shuja' person. Abul Fazl. So you have to have, you have to have the balance of both. Otherwise, if there is no balance, then this person will become a zalim. This person will become a zalim. We got about 10 minutes, right, for Maghrib, inshallah, so we'll do Masai. So justice is something very important. And for this reason, the Prophet have been sent in order that we establish justice. The Anbiya have been, Surah Hadith, that was the verse I'm talking about. And in order for us to do that, there's a journey, there's a path of tazkiyah and purification. And there's a part, the Quran plays a role. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ, the knowledge of the book. And then, when we take that step towards establishing justice, that's the true step. That's the balanced step. Otherwise, it will always be imbalance. Sometimes we think that, justice means that, for example, we shouldn't be serving tabarruk, and we should use the same money in order for some giving to the poor people. Why are you cutting this in order to do something good? Right? Sometimes we kind of think that to be just is like that, or to be generous is to be like that. That we something that we are already doing, as in, majalis or tabarruk, we say that, people are hungry, so we are not giving tabarruk anymore, but we are using this money to give there. You give tabarruk and make one announcement, you will do 3 times, will give 3 times more from a mu'min to that place. You just come and tell them. Tell a mu'mineen that we want to cancel the tabarruk, but this tabarruk of Imam Hussain, but we also want to give to the people who are poor. People will get up and pay 3 times more than that. So we sometimes calculate things according to our aql, according to our thinking that, this way we're going to be doing something that is giving a message. But actually that is wrong, Instead of giving that message, that becomes a problem for oneself, for yourself, and for the community, right? So it's very important to understand, to have that hikmat, to have that wisdom. And that comes with purification, tazkiyah and ta'aleem, which the Prophet has, been sent to do tazkiyah, wa yuzakim, wa yu'allimuhumul kitab. For what? Aqimun nasa bil qist. In order that justice is established. And whether or regardless, whether or not, justice is the underlying fact, reality is the underlayer of humanity. And the justice will strike back. Sooner or later, the justice will strike back. All of this azab on the qawm was what? These people who face the azab, natural disasters, because the nature will not tolerate injustice. It will react. It will fight back. Ad or Samud, thousands of years they did zulm. But where are they? The justice, it fight back. What happened in Iraq, Saddam, we saw. The zulm, the injustice. It naturally, things were created in a way that the downfall happened. Because he was unjust. He was doing zulm. So whosoever, Pharaoh, you name it. If you pick the book of history and see wherever there was oppression, in Central South America, in Mexico, in China, in wherever, the underlying factor, the underlayer of humanity is justice. It will come back and take the tyranny away. It will happen sooner or later, right? Because it is in the nature, right? So the point is that we, regardless, are facilitating towards that justice to return in different pockets, in different ways. When as the hadith is that when the earth will be filled with zulm, then the Imam will bring the justice. Justice will return. Now, if we move in that direction with greater understanding, with a universal understanding that we have of that justice, then that return will be near. Then that purpose of the Prophet and the book will be served. But if we do it just on an individual level or in our own way that we think that is, then we are not going in that right direction. That's why Rasulullah was adil, was just, and with ihsan. He is ill. And he asked that, some of the riwayat and reports are there. Sheikh Tijani talks about the hadith and narrations from the books of the Ahl Sunnah that the Prophet was not willing to take medicine. And then there were a group of Sahabi and some of the close ones to the Prophet. They forced and put something in the mouth of the Prophet, according to the narration that it is, which deteriorated the health of the Prophet. In other narrations, that the food which was given to the Prophet was poison was put in the food from other people outside. Prophet would not reject people giving them food. Prophet would eat. Some narrations talks about that. Some narration talks about within the closer circle, Prophet was forced. These are narrations that we find in the Ahl Sunnah books as well. Now Prophet, he was ill, but he would ask Amirul Mu'mineen and other companions, Salman, to take him to the mosque. And he would sit in the mosque and the people will gather around him. And he would say that I will no longer be with you in a course of time. The days are near. And is there anything that I have done that have hurt you? That you felt pain because of what I have done? You are welcome to do so against me before I leave the dunya. He wanted to clear things. A man who is so humble, a man who would sit with the people and the people coming from outside will not recognize who is the Prophet. He says that if I have done anything against you, go ahead and do it right now towards me, or speak about it so that I can, make the accounts clear. So here a man in the crowd stands up and he says that, oh Prophet, when we were in a row, when we were in a battle, we were standing in a line, and then you pushed your staff against my shoulder hard so that we stand firm. Then Rasulullah said, everybody were like shocked. And then the Prophet said, okay, fine, you come. And you do exactly the same that I have done. And he removes his shirt. And this man in tears comes and kisses the stamp of the Nabuwwat which Prophet had. He said, "Oh Prophet, I just mentioned it so that I could kiss your shoulder. I have never seen any injustice or any harsh treatment of ours from you." Prophet was like this. But in return, what we see, I mean, the Quran itself is a proof. They come to the Prophet and they say, "Oh Prophet, please tell us what we can do for you. You have done so much for us." The Prophet says, "The ajr is with Allah. Don't worry about it. The ajr is with Allah." I mean, Surah Hujurat, as we are talking about, they used to come outside the house of the Prophet and they say, "Oh, call Muhammad, come." Like that. That's how they used to treat the Prophet. But Prophet was so humble, was so kind, so caring, would not say anything, would give time, would sit with them. Till the Quran comes and says, don't address him as the name, with the name. Address him as Rasulullah. Allah have to take care of him. Stand up in prayer at night where his feet used to get swollen up. Worrying about Ummah, caring for the Ummah. That's how the Prophet was. Forced the Prophet so much that, can we do anything? Then Prophet said that, okay, the Allah is saying, "Illa mawaddata fil qurba." Okay, if you want to do something, take care of my near ones. And we saw how they did. What type of treatment, how they took care. And Prophet, the last night, as it says that somebody knocks at the door. And then Fatima is there. Prophet is there. Prophet says, "Go Fatima, open the door." Fatima says that the Prophet is ill. Who is here now? The Prophet says, "No, go open the door." It's the angel who seeks permission from no one but except me. The time have come near. My health have completely deteriorated. Prophet is weak, cannot walk. And then Zahra opens the door. Jibreel arrives with the permission. And here Zahra is crying, Fatima is crying. It was not easy for the Prophet to see Zahra cry. And the Prophet says that, "Oh Zahra, come near me." And she comes near the Prophet. The Prophet says something in the ear. In the ear, Zahra smiles. They ask, what did the Prophet say? The Prophet is the first one to leave this dunya after me and meet Rasulullah in the hereafter is Fatima. In that young age. And here the ruh of the Prophet leaves and Fatima cries for the father. And it was in no time that we see that this very door Israel comes and knocks the door of Zahra. This door, they came with fire and they burned the door. And that burning door falls upon Fatima to Zahra salamullah alayhi. That's why Fatima says, "The Masaib upon me that fell upon me, subbatar al Masaib." If these Masaib fell on the days, it will change into dark nights. The death of the Prophet was so heavy for Fatima, and on top of that there is Shahadat of Mohsin. And there is Shahadat of Mohsin, and Ali says that, "Fatima, when I go outside, nobody returns my salam." How painful it was for Fatima. And they pull Ali out with a rope in the neck, and Ali and Fatima runs to the Masjid al-Nabawi. Allah lanatullah ala qawm al-zalimin sayalamu alladhina zalamu in munqalibin yanqalibun. بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها وسر المستودع فيها بعدد ما أحاط به علمك فأجرنا يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك يا قاضي الحاجات يا كافي المهمات إنك على كل شيء قدير. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات, especially for all your marhumin, for the marhumin of the sponsors of the majalises and the volunteers, and for all of the shuhada of Gaza, Palestine, and all over the world. They are Al-Fatiha ma salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.